Hey guys, how are you doing today? I'm doing great, thanks for asking. I moved, and I'm not done moving as you can probably see. I'm in my brother's old room, but that doesn't matter. Today I'm going to be showing you the stuff I do personally to my DIs to make them sound how I like them to sound, as well as just a few tricks, some tips even, to get a better sound out of your amp. If you want to join the Discord server, by the way, the link is in the description. Lore Weaver merch beneath the description, by the way. Anyway, let's just get right into it. So this is a section from a Lore Weaver song that we are getting ready to release hopefully soon, and it sounds like this. I love it. The guitar on its own also sounds pretty nice, at least in my opinion. And let's just take a look at what I'm doing so far on the DI. Right now I just have a dip at 1200 because without it, it sounds great. However, on my specific guitar, because this is Spencer's DI, his link is in the description, he just released a really cool song. My version of the guitar has really crazy over the top 1200K, so cutting that makes it pretty much the same as what you heard without it, so you can just discard that right now. But that goes to show you as well, which was going to be my second point, if you're having, say, I mean, let's just boost this for exaggeration, but so if your amp sounds like that, rather than cutting it after the amp, like I was doing a little bit here, but if I cut at the 1200K mark after the amp, it still sounds good. However, if I were to cut it before the amp, very small difference, but there is a difference. I find personally that cutting before the amp rather than after the amp, it helps preserve the tone just a little bit more coming out of the amp sim or whatever you're using. And so you're not going to really be destroying the tone at all if you're doing EQ moves before the amp. However, there is quite a fine line. Of course, you don't want to be doing all of the EQ moves on the DI itself. You want to do that, some of those things after the amp, such as like harshness and stuff like that. Another thing I like to do before the amp is get rid of 250-ish to 500, because that gets rid of a bit of the muddiness. And if I were to do that after the amp, which I was already doing here a little bit, but let's get rid of these and do 250 and 500 again. When I do it before the amp, it is a little bit more clean in my opinion. So if I turn these back on, makes it just feel a little bit better, at least to my ear. Another thing I've been experimenting with on the DI, this is something I picked up from Buster actually, from his recent course he did with URM. I know nothing about how he did that with his DI, but he made it look like a Subbase and it was insane. However, you can just use any clipper or limiter. This is how I've been doing it. I'm just going to do limit, and I'm going to just kind of squash it. And without it, with it, it introduces a weirdly nice low end to the signal, which I think is pretty cool. And if I were to turn off the amp sim to show what it's actually doing to the DI, and with it off, aside from volume, It just kind of sounds sick. It's just adding a lot of low end. And adding back in the amp. Love it. And another thing I also like to do to my DIs before the amp, and especially after flatline. It can go before flatline or after. I usually interchange them to see what sounds better, but I do like to boost around the sub area of the DI. I would say around there, because I don't really want too much of the high end to come through. I know it's high end, but like I don't want the low mids to come through as much as I'd want the sub to come through. So I'll find that sweet spot where it just starts to cut off the low mid and or the bass, and I will just keep the sub. And so with those tricks together, turn off the EQ, back on. And again, just straight DI. And EQ off. On. Before flatline. I feel like I like that low end a little bit better, so I'm going to keep it that way. Turn back on the amp. And let's hear it in the full mix. Ironically, adding volume made me feel like I lost volume, so I'm just going to turn this up a little bit. And I think that's sick. Another thing I do like to do is put OTT. And for all of you people that like free plugins, you're going to love this one. I'll put it after flatline, I'll put it before flatline or the clipper limiter, whichever you're using, and I will just play it with the amp because I find it a little bit easier to gauge how it's going to sound. And as you can see, the way I like to set it is there was that really whistly frequency when it was just a little bit too high, and I backed it off until it was just gone enough where I couldn't hear it, but it was still adding a lot of oomph to it. And if I were to disable this, enable, bring it down a little bit more. And without the amp, and off, on, I know there's a lot of noise in the DI, it's a single coil, but back on with the full mix. I'll play the outro for this song. It's not entirely balanced quite yet, but you can hear that there is a difference between the two takes with the processing without them. So I'll play it without it first. And with it all on. can hear how some spots are a little better than others, and that's just because I really kind of tuned it to one section. However, what you will notice is when there's these little stutters here, if I were to get rid of those processes I added, they sound cool, but when you add this, if you were to automate this whole processing thing that I just did to those stutters, it would stand out so much more in the mix, and I think it sounds cooler too. Personally, I think that sounds cool. And in the mix again. I know it was a short video this week, and I appreciate you for stopping by, and I'm sorry I've been away for so long. Moving has been a journey, it really has, and I'm still not even done. But again, the link to the Discord is in the description. Thank you for watching, and I will be around every week again here very, very soon, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.